we should not allow the banking system to create more money that doesn't exist.
That's funny and not funny to hear at the same time, you know.
Because I wanted to buy something off the darknet, they just pack everything up, travel to another space, work there, and then travel back.
Hello, Ms. Tina. Thanks a lot for joining us today into our virtual studio. We do really appreciate your time. So welcome here.
Really, really happy to be here, and thank you so much for the invite.
First of all, let me ask, please, you to tell us a bit what you're doing today, what's your main occupation, what's your business like, what you're busy on today.
Sure. So actually, as most of us female entrepreneurs are, I'm busy with a lot of different things because one thing always leads to another. But my main job, my main occupation is I'm the CEO of a company that is called Join. And what we do is we're building a storage solution for digital assets that is 100% compliant with European regulations, MiCA, travel rule, and the 100,000 other regulations that no one even knows the name of. And we designed it in such a way that actually everyone can use it. So through account abstraction, we have an interface so that with just an email, you can sign up. It's not more complicated to use than a Google or Apple wallet, which we don't like. Google or Apple always have our assets or our informations. And you can store any digital assets there, cryptocurrency all the way to digital identity, or later on digital euro or whatever other things are going to be digitalized, and there's going to be a lot. And it's completely self-custodial, so other than with a traditional bank that might like you or might not like you, and that will use your money to leverage it and to actually make more debt with it, and that then actually doesn't even own your money, and then doesn't give it back to you, but makes you even pay for them to lose it. With our storage solution, the assets are always 100% the user's assets. No one can touch them. No one can do anything to them. And doesn't matter what the government or the bank or anyone says, it's just yours. So that's the company I run as a CEO at the moment. I also co-founded it. And on the side, I also work or advise European Parliament on things like future technology, artificial intelligence, and regulations when it comes to currencies, digital currencies, but also, why we should not allow the banking system to create more money that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
See, and this is where I think we already meet with this chat that we're having today, because I think we just both share this idea that this old school traditional banking system has just done its deed, and it has done its deed in the interest of the same people for long enough. A lot of people have made a lot of money, but a lot of people now think they have money when in fact it neither exists nor they own it.
Yeah, true. And it's a big problem nowadays. And thanks a lot for your pitch. I believe after this, a significant part of our audience will go and try your platform because it sounds really good.
Absolutely, please do. It's completely free to use. And I think the main thing is just you can do what you can do in digitalized finance, in DeFi, what we call. You can buy Bitcoin and stuff like that, but you don't need to know about blockchains. You don't need to have a seed phrase. You don't need to, know how to do it. You can just download it and then say, hey, this is what I want to try. This is what I want. At the same time, I can send assets without any borders within seconds to anyone, and I don't need to have ETH to use the ETH blockchain or even know what that is, because to be very fair, that's good enough if my developers or yours know that, and really they should. But I, as a user, if I have an IBAN, don't even know that the money we send around is not even there. So
good. Thanks a lot for this small pitch. Let me please ask about the beginning of your business journey. I'm really curious about what education did you get at the very beginning, and does it somehow correlate with your current activities, what are you doing today? Like what was the start of your journey?
Yeah, so no, it absolutely has nothing to do with what I'm doing right now. I actually started with a university degree in social work. I mean, that is very helpful because we work with crazy people in the tech field. So sometimes to just have knowledge about how to stay calm helps a lot. But at the end of the day, it was the most unnecessary university degree you could ever get, and I never needed it or used it for anything. The first business I started and owned was an Israeli restaurant, actually, that because I had no idea what I was doing, I thought having a restaurant was a great idea. Turns out having a restaurant is extremely difficult, and you don't want to have customers that actually can speak to your face all the time. But it actually went well. It was a really good business. And what I realized, I think, when I had my first business, which was a restaurant, is that, you need to own things so that they can actually turn out the way you want them to, so that the vision you have is what you present. And there's no other way to do that but to be an entrepreneur and to have your own business. And how I got into tech was very, very literally because I had a lot of issues with banks. I had an Israeli restaurant, and not everyone likes Israel very much. And it was just a nightmare. It was really a nightmare. We tried to make a coupon system for customers. We tried to use some tech software to make things more modern, and all of it just failed phenomenally. And so I thought, really, the money system, the way it is right now, it can't work that way. That's just completely ridiculous. I mean, if I want to send money to Israel because I buy goods there, this takes 2 weeks. This is completely the same for a restaurant if I want to order something. And there's no reason for it other than the banks use these 2 weeks to make more money of your money. So I started to get into the field of technology. I started to get into the field of payments. I started out to work for a company that tried to make payments to global countries easier, classical fintech. And to be fair, it was a really horrible place to work. And there were a lot of mistakes made. And at the end of the day, all they also wanted was just to make a lot of money with it and to use this marketing idea that we do it for the people, when in fact it really wasn't. And so I decided, no, that's not how it's going to be. And if I want something to change, then I have to build it myself. And at the end of the day, that's very simply what I decided to do. And I started a company. I found really, really cool people to work with me. And then we just started building a product without having any idea how horrible it is to build a startup, because else probably wouldn't have done it. And yeah, I've been doing that ever since. Yeah, of course, there's a lot of educational things that you do on the side and a lot of other projects you participate in or work on over time, because in this space, if you have a certain knowledge, that's just how it goes. But to be very fair, this very one mission to say, I want to be able through technology to create a better payment system just stayed the same. And if you have a vision, then you need to just do it, I think. But to be fair, my original education had nothing to do. And I had absolutely no idea when I started. Like, I found out what Bitcoin was a bit earlier than others. So that was lucky. And actually not because I thought Bitcoin was cool, but because I wanted to buy something off the darknet, like many of us do, so I had to get them. And yeah, that's how I ended up in technology.
Good, such a good story. But actually, this is how like a lot of us are getting into business, right? When you're not okay with something, that you have to make it by your own, and that's how you start in some companies. And yeah, that's quite familiar. So I'd like to know a bit more about your perception as a woman in business since the very beginning. Like, in what age you were where you started the first business as a restaurant?
I was very, very young, actually. It was my early 20s, to be fair. The restaurant industry is, if you believe it or not, waitresses are female, but everyone else, all owners, all supply chains, all line chefs, everyone is male. And the main issue is the banks are male. And the banks treat women differently than they treat men. If I have a meeting with someone from the bank and I say, I'm a business owner, they think like, yeah, well, she is, she advises some people on something and makes 5,000 a year. They do not assume that I am an entrepreneur. They don't assume that I am a leader. They don't assume, and even if they find out, it's still not the same. Even at that time, I started bringing men to my meetings, which is the only way you know how to do it when you're really young. And the next thing is, even with customers, often as you are as an owner of something, you work yourself. So I worked in service, I washed the dishes, I did everything that needed to be done. And when I served customers and they were not very happy, they said, can I speak to the manager? Because they just automatically assumed that can't be me because I'm a woman. And I had someone working there who was a male, he was a barman, and people always just assumed he's the manager, no matter what. And it's just a perception that people have in their head, which at the beginning really, really surprised me. But then at the end of the day, I started to realize it can also be an advantage, of course, because you can do things that other people can't do, because people underrate you, that can also be an advantage in the business world, of course.
That's funny and not funny to hear at the same time, you know. I mean, not funny because that we clearly can assume that you faced some sort of discrimination at the very beginning. So,
oh, absolutely. And not just at the beginning, I think just to, for example, what we had a bar and I wanted to get a contract with a supplier for beer. And he looked at me and he said, your business is not going to work. And I said, why? I said, you're 20, you're a woman, what do you want? You know, and when they speak to males about how to supply beer and blah, blah, blah. And he said to me, can you even carry a beer keg? And I said, why? I have people employed to do that, right? You know, that's why I'm the boss. But you can really, really, really tell that it is very different. And in the tech business, it's even a lot worse than in the restaurant industry, like 100%.
So that is my next question, actually. Like, what's your perception on the things nowadays? So during your business journey, did you notice that something is changing, maybe in a better way? I hope so. So what's your perception on like how it was that back in the day and versus how it is today?
I think things changed for the better a lot. If you compare it to the early 2000s or you know, a lot of things really changed. Like, for example, if I tell people I'm a business owner, this isn't weird anymore. And also, if I go to meetings, people will accept me. If I go to an interview or to get a client or a partnership or whatever, that's completely fine that I'm the CEO of a company. So that really, really changed a lot. But there is another side to it where things changed as well, but they changed for the worse. So yes, I can be a business owner, I can be a woman as a business owner and so on and so forth. But because I can be that, people forget the bias they have because they think, oh, yeah, I anyway think it's cool that she's the CEO. And they don't realize anymore that, in fact, they still treat me very, very differently than others. So if you look, for example, at the funding rates for even founding teams for projects in tech space with women in it, this just drops significantly. If you work in a company, you will earn significantly less, especially in the private sector and especially in the tech sector. That is the case. So when I worked for my previous company, I was a head of a department. I had about 50 employees that I was responsible for in one way or another. I had budget responsibility. I had project management responsibility for even specific tech projects. And I earned 1/3 than my male counterparts.
That's quite curious because like we saw and we heard different points of view on this. So some are saying that this is not that bad actually, like, and especially nowadays, like in civilized world, the things are getting closer to equality. But I'm curious how long ago it was, and like, is it today the same? So on the same position, you are still earning less than men?
Yeah, I think the reason why people have that perception is because, yes, women can have careers and they can hold specific positions in companies, and they are then as a CEO or as a managerial position, or let's say as a position with overview and outlook. But if you actually work as a programmer, if you actually work as a technical officer, if you work as a product manager for an actual development of a tech product, then first of all, there are almost no women who get to do that. They just aren't. And these women will be paid significantly less. Absolutely. Now, the reason for that is because I think women just don't get hired much. And if they do, I think there's always this thing in the back of the head, well, they will just not perform the same way. Because if I work with a developer team, 90% of the developers are men. They're men in their early 20s to their early 30s. They're men that do nothing all day but sit in front of a computer, be on Reddit, be on Twitter, be on whatever. And to them, female authority is just something that they don't even know. And to them, this is just completely foreign. So yes, the truth is that the performance might be not the same, especially because a lot of development teams, tech teams, just also come from a cultural background where it's not the same. So if I work for Google as a product manager, for sure I will get the same payment. If I work for a startup company with remote development teams from India, then absolutely that is not going to be the case. So I think not a lot of women work actually in tech. So they work in a tech company, but they don't build the product. They're not involved in the programming, for example. And I think this is where the difference really lies, which is because there is not a lot of people who can program a smart contract on a blockchain. So anyway, they're sought after. Those that are there are getting overpaid by a lot. And the women who have these skills just don't understand that they should also be overpaid a lot. So they also just ask for less.
What do you think is the ratio of this inequality? Like usually it's been said that around 30% less. What do you think on that? Can you measure it somehow?
I think in some areas, it's significantly more than 40% less. So let's say, for example, not just me. In another company I worked with, we had a specialized UI UX design team. And we had, obviously, the manager of the UI UX design team was the only guy in this department. Everyone else were women that did really, really good jobs, had really, really good qualification, but was just hired for a much lower position when, in fact, in daily work, what they did was the same work. A lot of it, I think, is, yes, if you're on the same level, you get paid the same salary, but the woman just gets hired as a UI designer and the man gets hired as a UI design team lead. If he's better or not, doesn't matter, because usually the women in these teams work better, put in more hours, have better ideas, but that's not the job that they will have. So he earns up to 50, 60% more, but the title is different. And so therefore we don't see that in the statistics, in my opinion. But in reality, I've seen that women work a lot more, put in a lot more hours and get paid significantly less.
That's true. I can totally admit that women are work usually better. And this is very curious point of view. Like we never thought about, that they're just hired and they're not shown in statistics because they're hired in different positions, even if it's unfair. So yeah, that's quite curious point of view, let's say. You know what I'd like to talk about is that like nowadays, you mentioned about investment, about women CEOs and founders. And nowadays I can see that trend that funds are getting more and more into investing, especially into female founders or teams with female founders. So I think the trend become positive. What's your perception on this? Is the dynamics good enough and fast enough to fulfill this inequality? Or do we still need to put more efforts into this, to put more focus and more like good intentions in this? What do you think?
But I think one of the main reasons, and it's the same reason why all of a sudden there's investment funds popping up left and right that do sustainability investment, is because at the end of the day, a lot of these funds are built in such a way that they actually tap into large investment funds that are done by international governments. So for example, the Sustainability Investment Fund by the European Union, and this is a strategy which is called the Twin Strategy about digitalization and sustainability. And so if you have a VC company, you can tap into these funds if you support these causes. And so if there's money available that actually by strategy, the European government, for example, says we make this available, then these things are going to get more funding. That is very simple. It has nothing to do with the VCs thinking that now we all of a sudden want to support female entrepreneurs, or now all of a sudden we think that we want to invest in a greener future. Yeah, because if I speak to VCs, these people are very money oriented and really not a lot of them care about their carbon emissions, to be very fair. Just like in reality, you have a call with a VC that is for female founders. They don't give a crap if you're a female founder. They just need one so that they get more funding. And so, yes, I think we should keep these initiatives up. And no matter what anyone tells me about, politics just spends money on investing in fringe projects or in women or in minorities. Yes, we need these things because else these things don't change. Because you're not a VC because you have a good cause. And I haven't met one yet. A lot of them have said so. A lot of them maybe even go home at night and think that's what they do. In reality, this is completely not true, because for VC, it is all about making money. And this is just a better strategy for them to do it. And else I don't become a VC.
And what about other organizations? I met a lot of organizations supporting women in tech, women in Web3, women in blockchain, women in founders. Lots of them are appearing this way. What's your perception on this? Is that a good initiatives? Do we need to make more and more of these? Are they really helpful? What do you think?
Absolutely, they are. So I think that we need pushes to network. We need all female initiatives. We need for female founders. And not all of us come from Europe or the US. Yes, for us, maybe the conditions are a little bit different. If I'm a female founder in Nigeria, then I wish you good luck because there's absolutely nothing for me unless someone provides it. So now if I have a great initiative, like for example, Women in Web3 Switzerland, or a lot of other really great initiatives to support women in entrepreneurial space, they are the ones that will say, I'll give you a platform, I'll invite you to a podcast, I'll invite you to speak at a conference, because else this would just not happen. And to lobby and to advocate and to network and to support each other is something that we need to do more and more and more, especially because the gap is widening when it comes to this high technology space. Now, yes, maybe we have more women who work in or board members in companies, but when it comes to who creates artificial intelligence, who creates the technology that shapes how our future is going to look like. I held a speech with the London Intercultural Center on 8th of March about why we need female voices in actually programming the AI. Why? Because the AI is going to give us all the answers to our questions in this world. And if only men choose which data should be used to give these answers, then female voices or their needs or the answers that they might need are just not going to be there. And if, like with Google, all we do is use these answers as a base to build our reality and our truth, then females will just get lost in this. Not just females, also other minorities, obviously, of course, but we don't understand that the people who create the technology hold immense power. And if I have an all-male development team for a language-based AI model, then the result is very likely going to be biased in this direction. There's just nothing to do.
That's true. That second very curious insight during this conversation. Really thank you for that, because like me personally, I was never thinking about that, to be honest. But that's completely true. Yeah, it will have like one side of the perception of the things we're putting in and like not the other.
Because if I open Google and ask who are the 10 most important philosophers in the world now, get a list, and I can guarantee you there's maybe one woman on it. Now, not because Google wants to decide who is the best or whatever, but very simply because the programming of the search algorithm is designed in such a way that it uses biased results, because it has been designed by people who had no awareness to balance it within the technology that was built. And with all the functions that artificial intelligence is going to take over, we need to be extremely cautious to get rid of this bias in how we create the technology.
That's true. That's true. Can you make at this point a little sort of prediction on how it would look like? Will it look like still good or more bad? Your personal view.
My personal view is that we have a huge, huge problem with the centralization of who builds and owns this technology. So if only Google and Apple and one or two large AI labs are the ones that concentrate this power, hold this knowledge, have the good people that work for them. Because to be very fair, education, countries, politics is so way behind. I can't, like, if I want to be a top voice in AI right now, what would I do? Go to university? Well, I study 4 years and then bye-bye, because everything I learned is already way in the past. So it's people who work in practice, who work in this project, who found projects, who are involved in it, and there just isn't that many people, and you can't study it, no government can provide it for you. And if these people all go to the same places, then these places are going to decide. Not us is going to decide, not what's best is going to be decided, not democracy, because then that is just unimportant. So at the end of the day, it's really only decentralized projects that are built by entrepreneurs for a specific target group themselves that can change that. Because if I, for payment with my phone on Apple, can only use my NFC if it's an Apple product, then, and 50% of the world population own it, then it doesn't matter what politics does. That's just, they're going to decide. And I see a huge development towards decentralization with this tech. And I see politics really accommodating this. And that's a huge problem, in my opinion. And I think we need to enhance a lot more projects that say we can offer the same thing, but we don't concentrate all this decision-making power. So why is there no chat bot that anyone uses that is not ChatGPT or the one by Google? Not because no one else can program it, but because no one else uses it.
What do you think? Who have to be involved into this process of changes? Like, I mean, governments, startups, businessmen, I don't know, some who?
I think, especially when it comes to technology, government's not going to solve anything for us, not because they don't want or because it's not important in a democracy to choose the representation you think is going to want your cause, but because it's too slow. If from the time there's an initiative for a law in European Parliament until it's passed, it's 4 years. Until it's actually in each country an actual law, it's another 3 years. In the tech space, in this time, the law is already completely worthless. So just, I mean, you have to think about this, like European Parliament anytime travels to Strasbourg, all of them for 1 week a month. They just pack everything up, travel to another space, work there, and then travel back. In my company, we meet online, you know? So
Same.
we have a quick decision-making process, yeah? This, I would like to digitalize politics in a way that it's efficient and quick and actually has a chance to give feedback to the people that vote about what actually is the opinion, for example, of the Democratic caucus. So we cannot trust politics. We have to build it ourselves. We have to say, we want this change, then we need to go and build it. If we want to say, hey, female entrepreneurs have difficulties with being banked, then we build the bank. If we feel like there's no way for people that are, let's say, as a good example, for people from Russia that are against the war, that need to flee Russia because else they have to fight the war or they're prosecuted, they don't get asylum status anywhere, they cannot work anywhere, they're refugees also, yeah. On the contrary, they risk their life to not support a war they find unjust. And these people don't have a chance to get a bank account. So how would, I mean, because they're Russian, which exactly, they're born in Russia. That's not anyone's fault. So if we see that, then we have to build this bank that can offer that, because no one else is going to do it for us. So if we want to change the world, it's not politics. It's not going to this, if we want to change, sorry to say, the environment, the economy, the environment, then I can go out to the street and chain myself to whatever and say, hey, I want to do some environment. That's not going to do anything. Then you build a company that invents a technology that makes it better, and you build it yourself.
Exactly. This is very like solid and mature position, let's say. And this is actually from where we started today. Yeah. So if you're not okay with something, just go ahead and change it by yourself. So to summarize our today's conversation, I'd like you to talk something to our audience, which is mostly focused on female entrepreneurs, female in tech and business and influencers and creators. What do you want to say them from your experience, like from yourself, please?
I think what is really, really important, if you are a woman who wants to create and build something in this world, first of all, be a boss, want to be a boss, want to build it yourself. Second of all, you're going to get all responsibility. As a woman, we're used to taking all the responsibility. If there's a project to be done, if there's something where there's issues, if there's the night shift that one has to do, we're always going to be the one to say we do it. Not just because we're used to it, but also because that is how we even end up with a career as women, because we do these things. We need to learn to say no to these things. And if you say yes, you need to learn to ask for more money for it. And you need to learn to ask to get the recognition for it, because a man is going to step in and take it within a heartbeat if you don't do that. Second of all, you don't need to question yourself all the time. Your team, your male employees, your colleagues, your clients, your customers, they are going to question you more than they're going to question a man in your position. And on very different levels. They're going to question how you look. They're going to question how stable you are. They're going to question if you are as motivated as a man. Applications all the time. Don't do that yourself. Don't let them, because the reason why you are where you are, or why you get where you want to get, is because you're a lot better than any man in this position, because else you wouldn't be there. And just repeat that to yourself, say that to yourself, and find other women who do the same thing. Connect with them, let them support you. Sometimes if you have a bad, because you question yourself, you think, I had this big speech and I just bombed, have someone tell you, no, that's not true. Have someone tell you, what, even if you bomb, who cares? Find these people, connect with them, empower them, and just believe in yourself. Because if you want to do something, you want to change something, you absolutely can.
Thanks a lot for those wise words. Thanks a lot for your time today. It was very deep and interesting conversation for me personally, and I believe for all of our audience as well. Take care. Wish you all the luck possible. Thanks a lot once again.
And thank you very much for the invitation. I really enjoy this format a lot. I think what you do with your project is extremely important, just to identify the needs. I mean, to say, yes, we do banking, but we do it for a purpose, we do it for a reason, we do it for people, is what is going to change how the world runs. Because what put the world in the place it is right now is the fractional reserve banking system, and we absolutely need to change it. And I think you're doing this absolutely great. And everyone who's watching or listening, you know, this is what we need. So please support the channel, please like it, please share it, please invite other people to look at it. And if you want to, do an interview yourself or be in this program, reach out, because we need to change the world. No one else is going to do it for us.
Great. Thanks a lot.